We have been for a long time in the story of the Exodus now, many, many weeks. We are coming to the end of that story, at least in the Torah, the story as it is, manifest in the Torah, meaning the first 5 books of the Bible. We're coming to the end of that today, okay? So with that said, we are closing a chapter. We are tying a bow in many respects on the section we've been in the Bible, which really started in our first meeting, our Genesis 1 meeting. Our first meeting on the Bible proper. That was the beginning of the Torah. Now we're finishing the Torah. What is the Torah? Remember, the Torah is
5 books.
the first 5 books. Yes, but why is that important? It's the section that, according to how Israel is going to be talking about this, it's the section really that is originally penned by Moses himself, right? The original prophet of Israel, the original person who went up onto the mountain and God established a covenant through Moses to the people of Israel. Mount Sinai, of course, is what we're talking about. We read about these events and how they happened, but the Torah is that section where this very enigmatic, very sort of unique, legendary figure of the past for ancient Israel, that is Moses, right? This figure that is like a big deal, right? The first 5 books are the section that he is responsible for, primarily, at least in their first edition. And we've gone over, like, probably had some later prophets add some things and things like that, and that's perfectly fine. But yeah, that's what's going on here. And so what's significant about this also is that the era of Moses marks the time before Israel became a nation in the land, right? So for now, they've been wandering the land for a long time, for 40 years, but they're still brand new as a people group, right? They were enslaved in Egypt. They were sort of scattered and divided as slaves, and then they were brought out. And then even before that, they were just a family. They were just the 70 of Jacob. And before that, it was just Abraham and Sarah, right? And so you can see how now we have come to this place where they've truly become a people, a nation, a group, a society, and now they're going to integrate into the land. They're going to actually set up shop and actually start forming an identity in history. And with that, Moses marks this moment at which the covenant promises of God were granted, were given, were bestowed upon the people of Israel. And then you kind of come to the precipice of the end of the Torah, and then it's a cliffhanger. It's like, what's going to happen next? Because they have not entered the land yet, but they're about to enter the land. And then the question is, how is this all going to turn out? How is this going to all end up? All of these things that have happened in the story of the Exodus, the 10 or 12 signs against Egypt, the coming through the Red Sea, the Passover, the identity formation in the coming down of the cloud onto Sinai, the giving of the law, the giving of the Torah to the people, the Levitical law, all these things that we've been talking about, the building of the tabernacle. What is the tabernacle? The dwelling place of God within the midst of the people. The priesthood, the high priest who is the mediator on behalf of God and the people. Okay, so all of this has been set up. It's like, imagine building a big machine, right? Imagine Israel as this big machine that has been built up by God. And now the question is, the on button is going to be turned on. And how is the machine going to run? You know what I mean? Like, is it going to function according to its design, right? And that's sort of the question of the Old Testament. As we get past this Torah, get past this section of the sort of creation and formation of the people of Israel. When we get past the Torah, it's going to be Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings. By the time we get to the end of 1st and 2nd Kings, the book of the Kings, which is the story of the monarchy of Israel, Israel being a kingdom, actually, you know what I mean? Not just wandering tribes, but an actual kingdom. The kingdom is going to fall. Okay? The kingdom is going to fall, and it's going to go into exile into Babylon. I've already said this a number of times, and I'll reiterate this back at the end of today's study. But all of you should be thinking about Genesis 1 through 3, okay? The idea that God created a good world, right? The idea of this construction of people, like just imagine these parallels, right? Press go, you know what I mean? Press start, meaning put them through the test, right? Seeing how they're going to function. Not that God necessarily doesn't know that they're going to fail, but the idea, part of the point is that he does know they're going to fail, and he's going to say as much in Deuteronomy. But the point is, as we go through the actual event of the story, they fall flat on their face, right? They're sent into the exile. They need a savior. That is what happens in Genesis 1 and 3, or Genesis 1 to 11. And now we're on that precipice of the creation of Israel, and it's going to be a long march through history to watch their repeated and ultimately ending failure by the end of the historical books of the Old Testament. Does that make sense, guys? That's the story. So what you have in the story of Israel, the people of the story of Israel, is a mirror of the story of all of humanity, which was already described in Genesis chapters 1 through 11. Okay? Does that make sense? This is just localizing that story in history, right? Because Genesis 1 through 11, very mythological. Again, doesn't mean it didn't happen. It's just very in the way that it's being described in prehistory, the far, far ancient past, right? The idea is that now we are localizing that story in real time, right? It's in that story of creation, garden, fall, Babylon. It's now being manifest in this sort of relevant history of this people that we can actually watch the entire story of how it all played out. Does that make sense? That is what's going on. And so when we come to Deuteronomy, we're coming to that end point of the Torah where God through Moses is giving a prophecy about all of the things that I'm describing, everything that's going to happen, all of the building up of the people of Israel in their kingdom, and the fact that ultimately, due to their own folly, the kingdom is going to be taken away from them. God is going to scatter them. And then he says, but I will bring you back. Okay? That is the story of Deuteronomy. Also, a lot of it is recapping things and elements that have already happened in the Torah. So it covers a lot as well to kind of give you a sense of reflection on everything that you've just read. Okay? So that's why the name is called Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy is just like, I think, the Latin for second, like the second version of the law or something like that. It's the idea of, let me sort of wrap this all up in a summary format to give it to you in this grand finale. Okay? So it's the grand finale of the Torah. It's a long speech, ultimately, is what it is. Deuteronomy is 33 chapters of a long speech given by Moses right before they enter into the promised land. That's how the Torah ends. Now remember, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, probably some of the most skipped books of the Bible, simply because a lot of people don't know what to do with them. Leviticus is a number of laws and rituals, and purification rites and things like that. Then you get into Numbers, and it's a lot of census data. But remember, there was a very unique couple of stories that we read in there. Number one, most important story of that would be the story of Balaam, this pagan sorcerer brought from the east to curse Israel. But instead, God speaks through this pagan prophet, this pagan warlock, and he gives a prophecy about the Messiah, right? The king of Israel that is to come to judge the nations. Such an amazing part of the Bible, seriously. The first time, if I didn't drive it, and this is just a reminder, if I didn't drive it home well enough last time, it's a story in the Bible where this dark wizard comes and he pronounces the coming king of Israel, his own enemy, right? And it's just, imagine like in a movie, like it'd just be so cool. You know what I mean? That he starts giving this divine prophecy of the Messiah who's going to come and judge the nations, right? So that's how we ended last time. They slayed a few giants. Remember? We talked about giants last time. By the way, next week, because we rearranged some things, next week is our big meeting on the giants, okay? It'll be we've already had a few meetings. It'll be our last one because next week we're going to be talking about the conquest of the land in which they go and fight all of these giants, right? The book of Joshua is in many respects just like a war text, okay? So it'll be exciting, okay? It'll be like the kind of thing that, again, if we could put this to film, it would be epic, right? So that'll be a lot of fun for us to read next week. And then the following week, we'll sort of do a reflection on the land itself, do some geography, help outline some things for you, because honestly, it'll be important for you to understand certain elements of what the Bible is talking about later on. Why is the region of Bashan so evil, right? Like in the imagination of the ancient Israelite. Why is the land of Judah so promising in the land of, or Judea, promising with Bethlehem and Jerusalem and things like. Does that make sense, guys? What's so unique about the tribe of Dan? And anyway, so does that make sense? So, because again, that will help give you some symbols and things to think about later on as we look at, because really the people of Israel are very, very tied up in the rest of the Bible in that land, and a lot of the metaphors and things that they're going to be talking about involve the actual on the ground realities. Okay, so that's why it's important that we have a meeting like that, because it'll help enlighten you to what the Bible is referring to in its idioms and the kinds of things that it's mentioning later on. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, are you ready to get into it proper? Let me do a little bit more summary here and just recap, because I do have slides that I've sort of just gone for it, but I'll just do the slides and then we'll get into the reading. We're going to do a lot of reading today. I want to get through big chunks of Deuteronomy. Okay, I have like a minimum number of slides, I think, prepared for you. I have some slides, but not a ton. We just want to do a lot of reading, okay? So to close out the Torah, Deuteronomy is a collection of summary speeches delivered by Moses right at the end of his life and before Israel enters into the promised land. The main theme here is the covenant made between God and Israel, and how it is foretold by God that Israel will, in the end, break the covenant, the Sinai covenant with God, right? Resulting in the punishment of their exile. Remember, a covenant is a formal agreement in that which binds two parties to this function that we're going to operate together. The fact that God shakes hands with the people of Israel and says, we are going to be partners together, right? We are going to go forth. You are going to be my representatives in the world. The idea that Israel could be a kingdom of priests, a holy nation, that's what the covenant is all about. It's, as our friend JM likes to say, it's not a covenant in the sense that it's eternally binding. In fact, the part of the point of the Sinai covenant is that it will end, okay? There's an end point to the Sinai covenant. He describes it as it's a covenant of service, meaning he says it's not a covenant of salvation, it's a covenant of service, meaning it's a covenant that God says, if you do these things, it's going to go great for you. Okay? If you do these things, it's going to go great for you. If you don't do these things, it's going to go bad for you, right? And again, the point is the employment of the people of Israel to be that kingdom of priests and light to the nation. The covenant of salvation, as he would put it, is far older. And it's not an agreement that is bound on both parties, right? It's a covenant that God makes with his people, and he says, it's not up to you to do anything. I am going to bring this to fruition no matter what, right? No matter what happens to humanity, I'm going to bring this into fruition, right? That's a little bit different than the Sinai covenant, because the point of the Sinai covenant is that it is conditional. It is going to end at some point, and it does end at some point. And this is why God says, I'm going to make a new covenant all the way forward in the book of Jeremiah. The point is, as Jeremiah is prophesying about the coming exile, we're about to be thrown into the dungeons in Babylon. We're about to be thrown out of our land, right? We're about to be expelled from everything that God gave us and our ancestors all the way back. Jeremiah says, thus says the Lord God, I am going to make a new covenant, right? So, and to bring it all home, when Christ raises the bread and the wine And he says, this is my body and this is the blood of the new covenant, right? That new covenant is established, okay? What Deuteronomy is about is it is, again, summarizing the terms of the Sinai covenant, okay? The terms of the Sinai covenant. This means, who are you to be, Israel? What are you to do? What happens if you don't do it? And what are the great things that are going to be for you, in store for you, if you do it, if you do operate in this covenant? Nevertheless, and this is part of it, I know you're not going to do those things. Okay? So repetitively, again, God is speaking to the people through Moses, and God says, I know you're not going to do it. Just know, I know it's going to end badly. But I guess, think about it this way. God is clearly stipulating. He is not holding back. He's not pulling his punches. He says, this is what's in store for you if you keep the covenant. This is what's in store for you if you don't keep the covenant. And I know you're going to mess up. I know you're going to fall short. Okay? Almost think about it like you speaking to your child, right? Speaking to your child who you know will disobey you at some point, right? And you're saying, hey, here are the great things that are in store for you if you make the right choice. Here are the consequences for you if you make the wrong choice. And here's the fact. I know that you're going to mess up and you're going to experience those consequences. But I love you and I won't let you fall. I'll bring you back. I won't let you stumble as to fall entirely. I'll bring you back. You'll be redeemed. I love you enough to restore you. Okay? That is a lot of what's going on in Deuteronomy. Okay? Remember, it's a mirror image of all of humanity. The people of Israel are a mirror image of all of humanity. God speaks to every one of us and says, here's the great things that are going to happen should you follow my law. Here are the bad things that are going to happen, the consequences that you're going to experience. Think about Adam in the garden. You may freely eat of every tree in the garden, but of this tree you shall not eat, because if you do, this day you shall surely die. Okay? That's Deuteronomy. Okay? It's just really expanded. But I will bring you back. I know you're going to fall. I'm going to bring you back.
I've heard some Christians say that the covenant God made with Israel is never ending. That means that he's going to bring all of Israel back, regardless of what they think of the Messiah or not.
It depends. That's dispensationalism.
Right.
It depends on which covenant you're talking about. So there's a number of covenants, agreements that are made. The Sinai covenant is not an everlasting covenant.
Got that.
The Abrahamic covenant is an everlasting covenant. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
This one has stipulations for what's going to happen if they don't.
But the Abrahamic covenant, does that mean that all Israel is going to come to Jesus? I don't think so.
Well, you have to read Romans 11 for that, where Paul says, do not think that they have stumbled so as to fall. They are beloved on behalf of the patriarchs, is what he says. And so he has this vision, he has this anticipation that the shroud that is over their spiritual eyes will be lifted. And well, you could say nationally. That I don't think he's talking on an individual level. Yeah. It's up to every individual to actually,
That's what
put their faith in Christ or not. Yeah.
that was my question.
Yeah. The idea that he presents is that it is for the sake of the nations that the people of Israel do not receive the Messiah. But that's a very complicated topic that we'll get to in Romans. Okay, go ahead.
So we're going to use
Dispensationalism. Okay, so dispensationalism is a mode of reading the Bible that says that God works, the name comes from God, the idea that God works in different dispensations, okay? Now, we can all say that dispensation meaning he dispenses different things at different times. He gives. It's just fancy. What's a dispenser, okay? Yeah, he dispenses of different things at different times, right? And for them, they look at this covenant nature of it as though there's the dispensation of A, B, C, D, E, right? Like of these different things. and that right now we're in a certain dispensation where God is, they call it the dispensation of grace. This is the dispensation of law. The big thing is they believe that there's a later era or a later age where the church no longer exists, you could say. And I don't know where they get this from, to be honest. And then God will revert the old covenant back, this thing, and start working with just, once the church disappears, then it's the Jews again. This isn't in the Bible. So that's sort of why a lot of people are like
Being raptured.
the rapture. Yeah. So yeah, but it's very that way of looking at things is only popular in America. It started a few hundred years ago. And yeah, actually, I take that back. Historically, only about as long as America has been around and only popular in America. Actually, now dispensationalism is very popular in other nations because of we brought it there. The Americans brought it there. Yeah, we didn't, but it wasn't native to those places. Yeah. So
Sorry, I'm sorry to stay on this.
no, that's fine.
Whatever. I was thinking about all this. So God made the covenant with Israel, got that, and then Jesus comes, and different things that I've read, reading different people, said that when Christ came, that covenant ended, and He started a new covenant with Christians. So
the Christians are
Christians weren't Christians at the time, but the people who believed in Jesus, it was a new covenant, so it kind of left Israel out. It included it.
Well, yeah, the Christians were Jews.
Right.
So that's, again, if you read Romans 9 through 11 or Ephesians 1 and 2, all of it is about the true body of the people of God is Jew and Gentile together, right? Ephesians chapter 1 and 2 is like massively about that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but would you also consider them Israel?
The people of God? Yeah. So you would say you have been adopted into Israel, right? That you are Israel. Now, we don't, of course, mean that on an ethnic level. We mean that on the spiritual. There is no longer Jew or Greek. When he says that in Galatians, he says you are all one in Christ Jesus, meaning Christ is the true Israel. You know what I mean? He's the fulfillment of it, and you are in him. So the chosenness of the people of God at this point in the Bible has a point. The point is Messiah, Christ. So, good? How's it going, Nate? It's going meh? Okay. All right. Well, hopefully it'll cheer you up. Yeah. Okay, let's keep going, guys. Remember, they were brought out of slavery and bondage under the power of Egypt, under the power of Pharaoh, right? Who is this satanic figure, right? That's what he represents. They were brought out via the shed blood of a substitute sacrifice, a perfect lamb, okay? A perfect, spotless lamb, which represents God. The blood is spilt and then spread over the doorpost so that they would be spared and redeemed. When you use the language, I've been redeemed by the blood of the lamb, even in contemporary church settings, I've been redeemed by for singing that in church or whatever. That's Passover language, okay? All the way back in the book of Exodus. Then they're brought through the waters in a prefigurement of baptism, right? The idea of going down into the realm of death, being made into a new creation. Only by the blood of the lamb were you redeemed out of the realm of slavery, sin, death, and brought into a new creation. Okay? Does that make sense, guys? At the Sinai theophany, the law was handed down. This is when God comes down in the glory cloud. It was very mystical. We talked through the tabernacle. We talked through the priestly vestments. All of these symbols and what they are outlining in the story of the Bible about what it means to be in relationship with the Most High, be in relationship with the divine. Okay? And then we have... this is going back. We're going to say bye to Moses today. And I've already gone over that ad nauseum. So bye-bye, Moses. The important part to note is that Moses is extremely relevant. People are going to be talking. Again, I mentioned it a couple times, but if you watched The House of David at all, And whenever they bring up Moses or something, again, think about it. Like, imagine you are an ancient Israelite living in the kingdom of Israel a few hundred years after where we are today, and you're referring back to this figure, this enigmatic figure, Moses, who had that really cool staff, who went up on the mountain and it started glowing. You know what I mean? Like this idea, who, met God at the burning bush and all these elements. Like he was a amazing figure, right? And he handed down this literature to us that informs our identity. Okay, so we're saying bye to him today. So yeah, it's been good. Okay, let's get into the reading now. I've done a lot of recap and sort of teed everything up for you. Open to Deuteronomy chapter 1. And again, I'm going to try to not do too much of the slides. We're going to do a lot of big chunks of reading, and then I will get into the slides. Okay, does that make sense, guys? I'll read like the first 3 chapters. Okay.
So, first Deuteronomy?
Yeah, Deuteronomy 1, chapter 1. Now, these first 3 chapters are going to just be sort of more summary. It's going to be recapping what Israel has gone through in their 40 years of wilderness wanderings, okay? Starting at verse 1. These are the words that Moses spoke to all Israel beyond the Jordan, in the wilderness, in the Arabah, opposite Suf, between Paran and Tophel, Laban, Hazeroth, and Dizahab. It is 11 days' journey. ESV. Yeah. It is 11 days' journey from Horeb by way of Mount Seir to Kadesh Barnea. In the 40th year, on the first day of the 11th month, Moses spoke to the people of Israel according to all that Yahweh had given him in commandment to them. After he had defeated Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon, and Og, the king of Bashan, who lived in Ashtaroth and Edrei. Beyond the Jordan, in the land of Moab, Moses undertook to explain this law, saying, ... Okay, so let's just talk about the preface for a second. What's unique about this preface? What was mentioned that was interesting?
For me, it was like naming like all the locations, like the territory that they were at.
Okay, and then mentioning 2 figures. Who was mentioned? Og, king of Bashan, and King Sihon, right?
So it's giving like a specific time, location.
Remember, King Og, the slaying of King Og and King Sihon is the thing that instigated the whole Balaam incident, okay? Because, why is that? It is a massive historical moment that Israel would defeat these 2 kings. Imagine, think to like Lord of the Rings, think to like Star Wars, the fact that the Rebel Alliance actually took out Darth Vader, right? The fact that the Rebel Alliance, or excuse me, in Lord of the Rings, that they actually took out Sauron, you know what I mean? Like this big deal. And so framing the context of this moment, it's like, now let's reflect on the fact that God has handed these enemies over to you. Imagine that this is Isildur after he cuts the ring off of, off of Sauron's hand. And now he delivers this grand speech about how God has done all these things and delivered them, so on. Okay. So starting at verse 6, this is what now the speech is beginning. The Lord our God said to us in Horeb, you have stayed long enough at this mountain. Turn and take your journey. Go to the hill country of the Amorites and to all their neighbors in the Arabah, in the hill country, and in the lowland, and in the Negev by the seacoast, the land of the Canaanites, and Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates. See, I have set the land before you. Go in and take possession of the land that Yahweh swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give to them and their offspring after them. We're going to jump down. He's just going to talk about the selection of the judges at that time. We're going to jump down to verse 19, okay? Then, you guys ready? Cool. Then we set out from Horeb, which is Sinai. Remember, it's named Horeb and Sinai at different times. Then we set out from Horeb and went all through that great and terrifying wilderness that you saw on the way to the hill country of the Amorites, as Yahweh our God commanded us. And we came to Kadesh Barnea. And I said to you, you have come to the hill country of the Amorites, which Yahweh our God is giving us. Go up, take possession, as the Lord, the God of your fathers, has told you. Do not fear or be dismayed. Then all of you came near to me and said, let us send men before us that we may explore the land for us and bring us word again by the way we must go up and the cities into we shall come. The thing seemed good to me, and I took 12 men from you, 1 man from each tribe, and they turned and went up into the hill country and came to the valley of Eshcol and spied it out. And they took in their hands some of the fruit of the land and brought it down to us and brought us word again and said, it is a good land that the Lord our God is giving us. Yet you would not go up, but you rebelled against the command of Yahweh your God, and you murmured in your tents and said, because Yahweh hated us, he has brought us out of the land of Egypt to give us the land of the Amorites to destroy us, or give us into the hand of the Amorites to destroy us. Where are we going up? Our brothers have made our hearts melt, saying the people are greater and taller than we. The cities have been great and fortified up to heaven, and besides we have seen the sons of the Anakim there. Then I said to you, do not be in dread or afraid of them. The Lord your God who goes before you will himself fight for you, just as he did for you in Egypt before your eyes and in the wilderness where you have seen how the Lord your God has carried you, as a man carries his son, all the way that you went until you came to this place. Yet in spite of this word, you did not believe the Lord your God, who went before you in the way to seek out a place for you to pitch your tents, in fire by night and in the cloud by day, to show you what way you should go. We'll just pause there. Again, this idea, we've already read it, and he's recapping. He's recapping what we've been reading about in the story of the Bible so far. The idea is every time Israel comes into this moment where there's a roadblock, they start flipping out. They don't actually trust in their God, that he has best intentions for them, and that he has the power to deliver them. Every time they come to a moment, just think back to the Red Sea, parting of the Red Sea proper, where they come up and they start freaking out because Pharaoh is on the other side. And what does Moses say? He says, you have to be just quiet. The Lord your God will fight for you. Just be still. Okay? And time again, it's like a riot starts rising up. Rebellion starts fomenting every time they encounter a moment where they just feel like, for some reason, that God, delivered them this far, but he's not going to take them any step further, right? And so it shows that sort of testing and lack of trust, testing and lack of trust, testing and lack of trust. And so this is why they're sent into 40 more years of testing, right? 40 more years of testing, where he says the whole generation is going to die off. A new generation who was raised in the wilderness, raised in this state of needing me, is going to be risen. Okay? So picking up at verse 34. Yahweh heard your words and was angered, and he swore, not one of these men of this evil generation will see the good land that I swore to give to your fathers, except Caleb the son of Jephunneh. He shall see it, and to him and to his children I will give the land on which he has trodden, because he has wholly followed the Lord. Pause. Caleb is a member of which tribe? Judah. Okay? So remember that Jesus is the line of Judah. Okay? It's this archetype, or it's this pattern about Judah being this profoundly significant, tribe, or members of that tribe are very significant throughout. It's this sort of red thread that you follow throughout the story of the Bible, the people of the tribe of Judah. Okay? Even with me, Yahweh was angry on your account and said, you shall not go up in there. So that verse 37 is a little tricky. Why is that tricky? Moses is blaming the people of Israel for the fact that he's not going to enter into the land. Is that the only reason why? No, why not?
Well, he just
Okay.
God himself.
Yeah. So in the book of Numbers, it gives its own account as to, God has a reason for saying you're not going to enter into the
You're
land.
supposed to speak to the rock instead of hitting it.
Yeah. So many things about that story can be said. What we need to know, and we'll go over it briefly in the slides, what we need to know is that Moses is not entering into the land based off of his own folly. You can say was instigated by the folly of the people of Israel, but he is responsible for his own actions. And so anyway, I think that's probably why he's saying that. Verse 38, Joshua, the son of Nun, who stands before you, he shall enter. Encourage him, for he shall cause Israel to inherit it. As for your little ones who you said would become prey, and your children who today have no knowledge of good or evil, they shall go in there. and to them I will give it, and they shall possess it. But as for you, turn and journey into the wilderness in the direction of the Red Sea. And so again, it's just recapping the wilderness wanderings. Let's continue, okay? We're going to continue all the way to... Okay, this is going to be unique. Let's read this part, okay? This is going to be... You're going to ask as I read this, what is going on? This is complicated. This is weird. It'll make sense when we're done reading this chapter, okay? Then we turned and journeyed into the wilderness in the direction of the Red Sea, as Yahweh told me. And for many days we traveled around Mount Seir. Then Yahweh said to me, you have been traveling around this mountain country long enough. Turn northward and command the people. You are about to pass through the territory of your brothers, the people of Esau, who live in Seir, and they will be afraid of you. So be very careful. Do not contend with them, for I will not give you any of their land. No, not so much as the sole of your foot to tread on, because I have given Mount Seir to Esau as a possession. So interesting mention of one of the brothers of the patriarchs that we read all the way back in Genesis, Esau. Jacob's brother, Jacob's twin brother, right? Why are we fraternal? What is the name of twins that are not? Yeah, they don't look like each other. But okay, so the mention of this figure Esau from ancient history in their from their point of view. Why are we mentioning Esau? Just pause there. This figure from Genesis, and his descendants. Okay, for the Lord your God has blessed you in all the work. This is verse 7. Or verse 6, sorry. You shall purchase food from them with money that you may eat, and you may also buy water from them with money that you may drink. For the Lord your God has blessed you in all the work of your hands. He knows you are going through this great wilderness. These 40 years the Lord your God has been with you. You have lacked nothing. So we went away from our brothers, the people of Esau, who live in Seir, away from the Arabah to the road of Elath and Ezion-Geber, as we turned and went in the direction of the wilderness of Moab. And the Lord said to me, do not harass Moab or contend with them in battle, for I will not give you any of their land for a possession, because I have given Ar to the people of Lot for a possession. Okay, pause there. So we have the mention of Esau, this peripheral character, right, in the story of the patriarchs. It was, a decision by God to choose either Esau or Jacob. Jacob is the chosen one. As election in you, the nations will be blessed. We've talked about this all the way back in Genesis. So if you want to hear more about that, go back there. But now we also have Lot, who also is a peripheral family member of Abraham, right? Abraham's nephew. Why are we mentioning Esau and Lot, these figures that we read about in Genesis? He's saying, I gave to the people of Esau this land. I gave to the people of Moab this land. And this is what he says about the people of Moab and their land in verse 10. He says, the Emim formerly lived there, meaning they're in that land that Lot's descendants inhabit. A great people, a people great and many, as tall as the Anakim. So the Emim is a name of a tribal people or a nation or a kingdom, great and many, as tall as the Anakim. Like the Anakim, the Emim are also counted as Rephaim, but the Moabites, the descendants of Lot, call them Emim. The Horites also lived in Seir. Where's Seir? Seir is the land given to Esau. The Horites also lived in Seir, but the people of Esau dispossessed them and destroyed them from before them and settled in their place, as Israel did to the land of their possession, which the Lord gave to them. Now rise up and go over the brook. So we'll get to that in just a second. But rise up and go to the brook, over the brook to Zered. So we went over the brook Zered. At the time of our leaving Kadesh Barnea, until we crossed over the brook Zered, it was 38 years until the entire generation, that is, the men of war, had perished from the camp, as the Lord had sworn to them. For indeed, the hand of the Lord was against them to destroy them from the camp until they had perished. As soon as all the men of war had perished and were dead among the people, the Lord said to me, today you are to cross the border of Moab at Ar, and when you approach the territory of the people of Ammon, do not harass them or contend with them, for I will not give you any of the land of the people of Ammon as a possession, because I have given it to the sons of Lot for a possession. So remember that Lot had two sons, Ammon, and Moab. Do you remember that? Okay, so there's Ammon, and then there is Moab, and there's these two different lands. And he says, don't take Lot's land, don't take Esau's land. Okay, why? The land of Ammon is also counted as a land of Rephaim. Rephaim formerly lived there, but the Ammonites, the people of Ammon, call them Zamzumim. 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 Did I add another? Okay. People great and many, as tall as the Anakim. But the Lord destroyed them from before the Amorites, and they dispossessed them and settled in their place. As he did for the people of Esau who live in Seir when they destroyed the Horites before them and dispossessed them and settled their place to this day. As for the Avim who lived in villages as far as Gaza, the Caphtorim who came from Caphtor and destroyed them and settled in their place. Lots of different names of these different groups, right? The Zamzumim, the Horim, the Emim, the Rephaim, they're all counted as Rephaim, the Anakim. Who are these figures?
Those are the descendants of
Okay, yeah, so they're all these giant clans, right? These figures of these giant clans. So what does that mean? Think about the implications of this all the way back into Genesis. It's not just Israel that was tasked with dispossessing these giant clans, right? The Lord gave Lot's sons land to do that. The Lord gave Esau's sons land to do that. So that sort of reframes your focus a little bit on what God is doing in Genesis, okay? With these different splinters. And why are we focusing on the story of Lot? Why are we focusing on the story of Esau, right? Is because you have the core that is the people of Jacob, the people of Israel, but multiple groups come from Abraham, or the sons of Eber, right? And all of them are tasked with what job?
To replenish?
To get rid of, and remember, what do the giants represent? They represent the old world, right? They represent the old kingdoms, right? Turn over the established order is the main point. The sons of Eber, the Hebrews, okay, turn over the established order and establish a new world order. That is, taking place in the land of Canaan, the linchpin between three continents, right? Take out those kingdoms, and from there, we're starting something new, okay? Not just the people of Jacob, the people of Esau, the people of Lot, the sons of Eber. Again, it sort of reframes in your mind a little bit what's going on in Genesis, okay? In the establishment of multiple groups of people. Now, Esau and the Moabites, they're all going to be enemies with Israel, okay? Edom and they're going to not get along when they're in the land. But that, again, is helping you to understand what is the part of the point of this part of the Torah, okay? Is the idea of the overturning of the established world order, okay? The establishment of a new world order. This is going to be really important next week when we talk about something that you may have heard about, you may remember from school, the Bronze Age collapse. The Bronze Age collapse. A moment in history, a pivotal moment that defines ancient history. That is the moment when all of the kingdoms, all of the great empires of the world start collapsing all at one time, around this time, okay? Very important section of history, and directly linked to, or you could say, the books of the Deuteronomy, Joshua, and Judges are all within the context of the Bronze Age collapse, the fall of great kingdoms. Okay, does that make sense, guys? So we'll talk more about that next week. But the way that it's being described here is this idea that you have a number of different tribal groups that are actually the ones that are taking out some of these kingdoms, at least in the land of Canaan. That they're dispossessing these kingdoms, that they're destroying these kingdoms, that they're conquering these kingdoms, right?
So they have their own tasks to do.
Yes, the people of Lot, the people of Esau, they partook in that process. This is what's really cool, and I'll send you a video this coming for next week. At this time in history, archaeologically speaking, you have these letters that were sent to Pharaoh in Egypt, these cuneiform letters of all of these kings within Canaan saying, help us, help us. The Habaru are coming to destroy us. The Habaru are coming to attack and take our nations. Does Habaru sound like anything to you guys? The Hebrews, yes. So what's really incredible is from the opposite side of the spectrum, you have the perspective of the kings of the ancient world saying these nomadic raiders from the wilderness are coming and attack. These barbarians are coming and attacking. They're at the gates. You know what I mean? And so it's just really cool to have that other side. You know what I mean? So you'll see a video about that. But what's important about them calling them Habaru is they don't call them Israelites. They call them this proto version of the word Hebrew because it's not just Jacob, it's not just Israel, it's the people of Lot, the people of Moab, these sort of disparate tribes, even beyond the 12 tribes of Israel. The Hebrews are coming to attack us. You know what I mean? Isn't that wild? That's pretty cool, huh?
So are they being like God led as well? Like they're in the story that we read in Genesis.
You mean Esau and yeah, okay. Yeah, so that's a good question. Yeah, they are not in the sense they are not being led by God in the sense that he's directly involved, right? He's dwelling in the midst of Israel as the chosen possession, right? He says, you are my chosen inheritance, right? Meaning he says like you as a people are my, my special allotment that I'm working with directly. But it does say the Lord their God gave them these lands, right? So in a divine sovereignty sense, yes, he's involved.
And also because they were supposed to cleanse the land of.
Yeah, the point is the people of Eber, the Habaru, again, from the ancient historical perspective, they took those lands. You know what I mean? From their perspective, our God didn't like how you guys ran things. You know what I mean? He has a greater vision in mind for where we're going, where humanity is tasked with going. And he's the one God. He's not just the God, now we're in the people of Israel. He's the one God. He's not just our God. He's your God too. And he's using us as instruments of judgment. So does that make sense? Okay. Anyway, that's a really cool, again, nuggets in Deuteronomy that most people just don't understand what's going on in the Bible necessarily. Well, it's mentioning all of these tribes, again, these giant clans that are being overturned by not just Israel, but by the children of Esau, Edom, by the children of Lot, Moab, and the Ammonites, okay? These marginal groups as well are also involved, but they're all part of the Hebrews, okay? Cool.
God did say that at that Tower of Babel, when he's like, that's it, I'm done, I'm just going to go with Abraham. It makes sense that out of this family, he's going to do what he said he's going to do, but he's going to use this family now to do it. So.
Yeah, and remember, the point is the Tower of Babel represents the kingdom of darkness that will be overturned by the man and the barren woman. You know what I mean? That these people who have no destiny, I'm going to give them a destiny. I'm going to, it's the salvation coming from above, not from, by our own might, we're building a tower to God. Go ahead, Bob.
I don't know how to frame the question, but the question I think I have is actual land seems to be important to God.
Yeah.
Because he's giving them, he gives them the borders. From the Euphrates to here, from Lebanon, and he's portioning out land that he's giving a people.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can just speak to that at all. I mean, I kind of feel like, we hear this in the New Testament about powers and principalities that are not God.
Right.
But we also see God being a territorial spirit, so to speak.
Yeah.
I have something for you, and he attaches a people to a place, to land. And I think we've seen this in other cultures as well, that the land, we've become disconnected from the land, so to speak, in our own age.
Yeah. The simplest or broadest thing that I could probably say to that is that the physical matters. And it, attaching a people to a land, it's almost like saying attaching to a spirit to a body. You know what I mean? When God says to Abraham, I'm going to give you this land, you and your descendants after you. The mere image of that, the greater image of that, is God saying to the Messiah in Psalm chapter 2, you are my chosen one, and I'm going to give you the entire world. Yeah, and it's this idea of God is both involved in the particulars, as you say, of people being tied to specific lands, being physical, I think is the main point, being embodied in a space, right? And also unified under a head, right? A monarchical head over the entire world, right? So
A little anti-Gnostic.
yeah, well, that's the concept. Yeah, that's essentially what we're talking about, is the idea of
Physical reality.
you come from the dirt, you come from the land, right? Yeah, and so you are tied to the land. Adam means man of earth, right? Or being of earth, you know what I mean? Adamah is the word for ground. So yeah, so the idea of being your feet planted on this ground, yeah, is
I'm not gonna
important.
get ahead here, but people didn't take everything that he gave them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Joshua, we'll get into that. Yeah, sounds good. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 3. Let's keep going. This is, again, I keep trying to drive home for you, and you should always remember that the defeat of King Og is a big moment, okay? Because it represents that moment at which that when, the people of Ammon, the people of Moab, the people of Edom, when they overturned these kingdoms, now Israel is also overturning those kingdoms. Remember, they shirked their responsibility. God brought them up, and we don't have any stories of Edom and Ammon and them, wandering the wilderness for 40 years. He brings them to the land and they say, no, 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 no. We don't want to do this, right? We're gonna die. And God says, no, you don't understand. Like, you didn't save yourselves in the first place. Who got you out of Egypt? It was me. And I'm bringing you here now to conquer. And you're not going to conquer? Really? So now they've been wandering. And now once they kill and conquer the land of King Og, right? This great giant who it says his bed is like 13 feet long. And, these elements where he's supposed to be describing this like great Sauron-like figure. It's a big moment. Okay, so let's read about it. Oh, thanks for letting me know. Sorry, it's touchy, that cable. Okay, starting at verse 1 of chapter 3. Then we turned and went up to the way of Bashan, and Og, king of Bashan, came out against us and all his people to battle at Edrei. But Yahweh said to me, do not fear him, for I have given him and all his people and his land into your hand, and you shall go do to him what you did to King Sihon of the Amorites who lived at Heshbon. So Yahweh gave into our hand Og also, the king of Bashan, and all his people. We struck him down until we had no survivors left, and we took his cities at that time. Verse 5. All these were cities with fortified high walls, gates, bars, and besides many unwalled villages. Okay, let's jump down to. I don't want to spend too much time on this on this chapter. I just wanted to read. Do you guys see where it says how big his bed is? we already read that before, but I just wanted to point it out again. Verse 11. Okay, Og, king of Bashan, was left of the remnant of the Rephaim. Behold, his bed was a bed of iron. Is it not in Rabbah of the Ammonites? 9 cubits was its length, and 4 cubits was its breadth, according to the common cubit. So it gives this ancient measurement standard. But 2 things to note there. Just, again, that's very significant. This sounds very fantastical, this idea of, wars against these dark figures and things like that. If you're going to take the Bible at face value, what it's reporting to you at face value, number 1, it says, can't you go see that bed today? Now, it's not talking to us. It's talking to original readers, original hearers of this, right? But isn't that interesting how, it claims that this giant, the last of the Rephaim, King Og, and he's huge, and you can see how huge he was because we, sacked his castle and we have where he slept. and it's this giant bed. You know what I mean? Like, and we have that for you. You can go look at it. So that's very interesting just to think about within its own context. It's not as mythological, meaning not as sort of embellished as you might immediately think. It's giving you like, hey, go look at this, it's in this building in, where the Ammonites live. So go look at it. Number 2, this is again another interesting element. Modern archaeologists have found a bed of that size. They did not find, or a bed frame. They did not find a bed frame of that size in Israel. They found it in modern Iraq, which is in where Babylon was. Okay? So again, that should also frame for you this idea that these numbers, they mean something ritually. You know what I mean? That these numbers, they have significance within these kingdoms. The fact that they found a bed of that measurements, but not in Israel. They found it on the other side of the Arabian desert. You know what I mean? All the way over there. Again, you can assume, oh, is it the same bed, or is it just another bed frame of that size? Like they were made frequently in the ancient world. So just thought I would mention it.
Like a mattress franchise.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's sort of like you don't really know what to do with that. You know what I mean? In your modern brain, you're just like, okay, so in the ancient world, they made giant beds. Why? For giants, yeah. So anyway, just thought I'd mention
Just
that.
in the California.
The Smithsonian, they hide all those giant bones, right? No, I'm just kidding. That's a conspiracy theory. Okay. We'll stop with the giant talk now, okay? We had a lot of giant talk next time. I know, it's fun. It's fun. It's the reason we've done all of this giant talk, by the way, is because it's so important for the book of Joshua. And the book of Joshua is very a lot of people don't get the book of Joshua because they don't have all this background, okay? So when we get into the book of Joshua, that's when it's all going to sort of come home. Okay, now that we're done with giants, let's go to chapter 4, okay? So he's given this summary. What is the summary? The point of those first 3 chapters was to say, look at all of our brothers and sisters, our extended family that took out these giants, and you were too scared. But look, God delivered them into your hands anyway. And look, he's going to do it when you go into the land right now. Like in the next 6 months, you're going to go into the land or whatever, like don't be scared. He handed the giants over to your neighboring family members in the Ammonite kingdom and in the Moabite kingdom and in the Edomite kingdom. Okay. And he's going to do that for us, guys. We're his special possession. So just be still. Know that the Lord is going to fight for you. Don't be scared of the giants. Okay. So Deuteronomy chapter 4. And now, O Israel, listen to the statutes and the rules that I am teaching you, and do them so that you may live and go in and take possession of the land that Yahweh, the God of your fathers, is giving you. You shall not add to the word that I command you, nor take away from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God that I commanded you. Sorry. Okay, something very interesting there. What does he say? Do not take away or add to this. Do not take away or add any words. Do we find that phrase at another point in the Bible? Where? Revelation. Okay, that's very interesting because this is the conclusion of the Old Covenant law, the stipulations being handed down, right? Where Moses says, do not add or take away any words. So why is John saying that in Revelation? This is it. This is it, right? This is the actual conclusion of everything. You know what I mean? Do not add or take away any words to this covenant. What it shows is that John thought of the end of Revelation when he says that as a mirror to Deuteronomy wraps up the Torah, Revelation wraps up the new covenant, right? And binds it all together. You know what I mean? So I just think that's really cool that you could find that John thought of Revelation as the end of the book. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's pretty cool. He didn't just write it and then it was assumed to be the end of the book or placed there. It was written to be the end of the book, right? Okay. Your eyes have seen, this is verse 3. Your eyes have seen what the Lord did at Baal Peor when the Lord your God destroyed from among you the men who followed the Baal of Peor. This is after the Balaam incident when he instigates them to worship. This is referring to the Balaam incident. Verse 4, but you who held fast to the Lord your God are all alive today. See, I have taught you statutes and rules, as the Lord my God commanded me, that you should do them in the land that you are entering to take possession of it. Keep them and do them, for that will be your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples, who, when they hear all these statutes, will say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has a God so near to it that the Lord our God is to us whenever we call upon him? And what great nation is there that has statutes and rules so righteous as all this law that I set before you today? Only take care and keep your soul diligently, lest you forget all the things that your eyes have seen, and they depart from your heart all the days of your life. Make them known to your children and your children's children, how on the day that you stood before the Lord your God at Horeb, the Lord spoke to me. Gather the people to me, that I may let them hear the word, so that they may learn to fear me all the days that they live on the earth, and they may teach their children to do so. And you came near and stood at the foot of the mountain, and while the mountain burned with fire to the heart of heaven, wrapped in darkness, cloud, and gloom, the Lord spoke to you out of the midst of the fire. You heard the sound of words, but you saw no form. There was only a voice. And he declared to you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform, that is, the 10 Commandments. And he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone. And the Lord commanded me at that time to teach you the statutes and rules, that you might do them in the land that you were going over to possess. Okay, so pause. He's going to start repeating the lots of these commandments. Okay, I want you to take note though of what is he describing in the presence of the Lord that came down onto Sinai. He's recapping that a little bit. And what is that recap? What are the things that he's saying about that? He's saying, what was it like to witness God on Mount Sinai? There was only a voice. Okay, so you saw no form, there was only a voice. What did they see though? They saw something. Fire. Yes, the fire, the calamity of this great fire, okay? This is going to be important as we talk about the idea of God as fire, or God as being represented in fire. Why is that significant? What other times in the Bible is fire associated with God?
The burning bush.
Okay, the burning bush. Good. Really, Pentecost. Yeah, good. There's a really significant image of fire in the Bible. Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, judgment. Good. Okay, so fire and judgment. What else, even in contemporary culture, do we think of? Fire and judgment. Hell. Okay, good. Yeah. So we'll get more into this later on.
Like refining.
Yeah, I was thinking the whole refining.
Refining fire. Okay, good. This is what's good about our descriptions of God as a fiery presence, or it says our God is a consuming fire, right? Or a devouring fire, right? This idea that is going to be really relevant as we get into more conversations about the idea of hell later on, okay?
More baptism.
Yeah, baptism by fire.
Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I guess is the point that you need to think about. Fire is never associated with the opposite of the presence of God. Okay? So when we say hell is separation from God, that's an interesting image if we're talking about fire. Okay? It sort of is a contradictory image. Okay? Because fire is described as the presence. Think about Aaron's sons, bringing strange fire into the holy place, and then it says fire comes out and consumes them. Think about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, where you have the fire burning, but then you have the presence of God in the midst of that fire, sustaining them in the fire. So I just want you guys to think about that, because in our contemporary language, we often say hell is separation from God, and that's true, right? But the imagery can be confused if we start relying too heavily on the imagery, okay? Hell, Sheol, is most certainly separation. That's non-life. But fire represents life, the light, living presence of God, right? And so when you have fiery descriptions of hell later on in the Bible, it's not talking about Sheol. It's talking about something else, okay? And then the idea of that there being no form, but just the fiery presence of God. That's important. That means that God and the divine council, his entire entourage, God the Father even, coming down in a sense, unveiling in a sense, That's a little crazy for me to say that, so I don't want to go too far into the theology there. But good. So he's going to go over the 10 Commandments. One important thing that we need to get into is Deuteronomy chapter 6. So let's go ahead and get into that. Who knows what the Shema is?
Commandment.
The greatest commandment. There you go. Yeah. What does Jesus say is the greatest commandment?
To love your Lord.
Mhm.
To love the Lord your God and to love others.
Okay. And love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah. Good. He says the second greatest is most like it, to love your neighbor as yourself, right? So yeah, he's quoting from the Shema, right? Which is not, this greatest commandment is not found among the 10 commandments. I mean, they were in the previous chapter, but then it's like, what the Shema does is it sums up everything, okay? Sums up the entire point, okay? The Shema, it's called Shema. The word Shema in Hebrew means hear, okay? Listen. And it comes from the first word of this commandment statement. When you recite the Shema, you're reciting a classic repetitive statement that is said amongst the people of Israel that identifies them as the people of Israel. If you're an ancient Jewish person living in ancient Rome, and let's say you want to prove that you are genuinely a Jew without taking your pants down, you know what I mean, to show your circumcision, what are you going to do? You're going to recite the Shema, okay? Because if you know the Shema in its original language,
It's like a national anthem.
it's like a national anthem or this thing. And this is why it is to this day very important. Jesus probably prayed the Shema many times, okay? So let's go ahead and read what that says, okay? Now this is the commandment, the statutes and rules that Yahweh your God commanded me to teach you, that you may do them in the land to which you are going over to possess it, that you may fear Yahweh your God and keep your son and your son's son, and your sons and your son's son by keeping all his statutes and commandments, which I commanded you all the days of your life, and that your days may be long. Hear therefore, O Israel, and be careful to do them, that it may go well with you, and that you may multiply greatly, as Yahweh, the God of your fathers, has promised you, in a land flowing with milk and honey. Okay, here we go. Here's the Shema, starting at verse 4. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh is our God, Yahweh is one. You shall love Yahweh, your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children. You shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. And when the Lord your God brings you into the land that he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give you, with great and good cities that you did not build, and houses full of all the good things that you did not fill, and cisterns that you did not dig, and vineyards and olive trees that you did not plant, and when you eat and are full, then take care lest you forget Yahweh, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. It is Yahweh your God you shall fear. Him you shall serve, and by his name you shall swear. You shall not go after other gods, the gods of the peoples who are around you. For the Lord your God in your midst is a jealous God, lest the anger of your God be kindled against you, and he destroy you off the face of the earth. Okay, pause. I'm going to go back and go over the slides now that we've read the Shema. I'm trying to go as fast as possible, I promise. But there's another this fire language. Why does it say that the anger of the Lord is kindled? What does the kindle mean? When you start a fire. Yeah, right? So just think about that again as we continue. But let's go back to the slides and I'll talk through them for a few minutes, okay? So they were at Horeb, the mount of the desert. Then they traveled through the desert. They traveled through the wilderness. Remember, they came out of Egypt to Horeb or Sinai. Then they traveled through the wilderness. They conquered Og, king of Bashan, King Sihon, and the whole Balaam thing happened here. The Jordan River's here. They're going to cross in, and Moses is giving this speech. Remember that the giants are the formation of the great kingdoms of the world. This is all stuff that we don't really need to talk about. Okay, so when we get to the great commandment, here is the Shema in Hebrew. The Shema in Hebrew its proper pronunciation. Shema Yisrael, and then you don't say the divine name. So you say Adonai, which is Lord. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. That's what you would say, right? Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone, or the Lord is one. Two things I want to say about this very quickly. The unity of God in the oneness of God, okay? That God is one. The idea is, and I've shown that sort of pyramid before, okay? That our God is not many gods. Our God is one God, right? We don't worship the disparate elements of creation. We don't worship all the various powers of the world. We worship the one who is at the top, who's higher up and further back, right? We don't worship elements of the universe. We worship the one who made the universe, right? The unity at the beginning, or the source of all things, okay? So there's that. There's also the fact that this verse is used as a polemic, oftentimes in anti-apologetics, from our perspective, against Trinitarian language, okay? I just want you to know that this oneness here, echad, the Hebrew word echad, is the same word that is used of man and woman shall become one flesh. So it doesn't represent singularity as much as it represents, now we do affirm that there's one God, one unified God, right? One being that is God. But it doesn't mean that there can't be a plurality or a multiplicity within his nature. Okay, so just
Plurality within union.
yeah, plurality within union. Yeah. So as God continues to reveal himself in the story of the Bible, he will reveal himself as Father, Son, and Spirit. Yeah. I mean, he's already done that. We've already had the angel of the Lord. We've already had the Spirit of God mentioned plenty of times so far. And of course, we have God in heaven. So there's all of these elements. But yeah, I just want you to know that some people will. They'll be like, the Lord our God is one. Trinity is pagan. You know what I mean? And you're just like, ah. Okay, so he said, take these words and write them on your hand and as frontlets in your forehead, right? This is a reference. It's either a reference, it's probably not a reference to Tefillin. The Tefillin is probably a later outworking of this command, but Tefillin is this amulet that would be wrapped. Literally, they would take wrappings. They would take a little box, put some scripture in the box, and wear it during their prayer times. They would wear around their head, and then the strap would come all the way up and wrap around their forehead, and then it would be in between their eyes. Okay? Does that make sense? Why is this important? What did I say about the Shema? What is it? Or how's it used?
To tell that they're Jewish.
To say that you're Jewish, to identify you, right? Okay.
In Revelations, it also says.
Okay, yeah. So, yes, exactly. So, what does it say about the mark of the beast?
I thought of the same.
Okay. On the hand and on the forehead. Yeah. Okay. So you can see that when the writer John is talking about the mark of the beast later on in the book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible, again, another parallel between Deuteronomy and Revelation, he's referring to this identifying marker that identifies you, right? So I just want you to think about that for a second. The seal on the forehead, the seal on the hand. So just sort of bookmark that for later on, okay? So the ancient practice of wearing tefillin during prayer was the literal application of the command of the Shema to bind the words of the Lord on the forehead and on the hand. Of course, this would be a unique and public display of identification for an individual as a member of the covenant people of God. In the New Testament, the reference to the tradition of wearing this accessory is used with describing both the seal or mark of the Holy Spirit, right? The Holy Spirit is the mark on your forehead, right? That idea, as well as the mark of the beast described in Revelation chapter 13. Okay, let's continue with our reading. I want to go to verse 20 now. I think that this is really profound, and so I want to make sure that we read it. When your son asks you in the time to come, what is the meaning of the testimonies and the statutes and the rules that the Lord your God has commanded you? Then you shall say to your son, we were Pharaoh's slaves, and Yahweh brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. Yahweh showed great signs and wonders, great and grievous, against Egypt and against Pharaoh and all his household before our eyes. And he brought us out from there, that he might bring us in and give us the land that he swore to our fathers. And the Lord commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear the Lord your God for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as we are to this day. And it will be righteousness for us if we are careful to do all this commandment for the Lord, before the Lord our God, as he has commanded us. I think that's really profound, because what the text is doing, Joshua, the book of Joshua, Joshua says at that point, he says, "As for me and my house, we shall serve the Lord," right? And Deuteronomy gives you a prescription of what it means to pass on the story of salvation, right? And I think that's really significant. So passing on the story, we were slaves under a tyrant in a foreign land, but God brought us out in order to bring us into the land that he promised us, that he promised our forefathers, to observe his commandments for our own lasting good. Okay? That's the story of salvation. We were slaves. God brought us out in order to bring us a land that he promised long ago, so that we would observe and act according to how he designed us to be for our own good. That's it. That's the story. That's another iteration of what you could call the gospel. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so right on that with the gospel and salvation, right? If we understand that this is what God means by this is how and why he saves you, this is my thing about today when we talk about the gospel.
Mhm.
I don't see where Jesus in the Bible says that the gospel is, you'll say you believe in Jesus so that you can go to heaven. That's not the gospel in terms of what God in the Bible himself is saying. You've been saved out of something to be put into a specific thing for a specific thing to do right now for our own good. And it's like that's what gets lost in the New Testament and how we teach the gospel today. Very, very thin gospel, and then you wonder why people don't connect our profession of salvation and faith to anything else we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to be connected to our here and now,
Right.
and how we live, and that gets lost. And so,
Amen.
Yeah.
I just had this conversation with my son.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So,
I just opened up to him about like how I was a slave to my dad did drugs and stuff.
Yeah.
And I opened up to my son and I told him and I said, true, only through God.
Yeah.
Where my wife, your mom and I able to get out of it, and we're open with that. He's 14,
Yeah.
I said, like, what are the odds of two addicts getting sober and staying together and finding love without God? Like, it can't be done. And so that's
It's good.
That's it.
Yeah. And then the third part of that. And now I'm being put to my design for my own good, right? Like now I'm able to operate within how God wants me to live. Yeah. Because he saved me from the realm of death, So anyway, it's good.
because I think, okay, going back to the Gnostic thing, I think that kind of thinking, jumping from salvation to, so we can go to heaven one day, like the spiritual jump, as if nothing that he created for us right now in our own physical self and the own earth right now matters anymore.
Yeah.
And it's all just about going to heaven in the future. I'm like, but that's not what it's about.
That's
Right.
And that's escape stuff. That's not what God created us for. I think we lose, so much of what God has for us to do right now as his people and bringing his kingdom right now. And he doesn't need our help. He wants our help. But we just, I think ourselves miss out on what he has for us in life right now. If we're always just thinking, oh, it's all going to go away and I'm just thinking about heaven, you are totally losing for yourself and for those around us who we're supposed to be representing the priesthood of God, connecting with everybody else to here's what you guys can also live into right now. That's like the awesome good news that's going to connect people to, yes, that is something different. If you're just going to tell somebody who's in a terrible, horrible place, oh, but it's okay, you can be saved because one day you'll go to heaven. But God doesn't care about your situation right now, but one day you'll go to heaven if you just believe. How is that good news?
Yeah.
So this third part, I like that I see this from the beginning.
Yeah.
This is the fullness of God's salvation.
Yeah.
Here and now, not
Right.
just in the future.
Well, and the thing about it is what new creation is it's not disembodied. And what new creation is, when Jesus says, like, store up your treasure in heaven, or when Jesus says like, excuse me, when Peter says like all of our works are going to be refined and tested by fire, it means that all of the good that you do in the world, it lasts.
Yes, those things are going to last into the new creation.
Exactly.
And that's the whole awesomeness of what you do now actually does
Matter, yes.
It's not going to just disappear. It's not the whole let's just jump on a ship and let the Titanic sink. No, it matters right now. And it's awesome to think that part of this work that we are doing in and with him is going to continue and become refined and become even more awesome, but that we get to start living into that right now.
Yeah.
Is awesome.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And I just love I love the presentation that says when your kid asks you, here's what you say. We were slaves, but God has brought us out in order to bring us in order to allow us to live according to how we were made to live for our own good, right?
and it will be made perfect when Jesus comes
Yeah.
back. But until then, it doesn't mean that we cannot start that now. No, we know it's not going to be perfect now, but it doesn't mean that we don't.
Whatever good you do.
That's what we, in the New Testament, or the New Covenant, that's also what we say. We say the same thing.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
We're
how-
slaves.
That's how you should say it.
free.
Exactly. I think that's the point. Yeah. That's how you should be doing this. You know what I mean? Passing on the story. Yeah. Good. Okay. There's a lot that we could say, guys. I want to jump to the back of the book though, if that's all right. There's a lot that we could say in the middle, okay? Just go read for yourself. We've talked a lot about sort of esoteric things today with the giants that I don't really want to harp too much on that. We were going to talk about chapters 9 and 12, and then we're going to talk about chapter 18. Go and read that, because it's going to be interesting. We'll talk probably a bit about this next week. It's going to talk about when you go in, make sure that you destroy everything, and make sure you don't partake in sorcery, witchcraft, this and that, okay?
When they say destroy everything, take it at face value for newcomers. It kind of sounds like genocide.
Well, yeah, we'll talk more about that next week, I think. But by destroy everything, how I used it right now, I meant all of their worship.
Right, because they don't want them to participate and pick up the bad.
It says, take their Asherah poles and cast them down. Take their idols and their high places and their altars and cast them down. Yeah, that's more what I was talking about. What you just talked about, the slaying of the giants and stuff like that. We'll talk more about next week. That's okay. Is that all right? Okay, cool. I will say, I'll just give it this note, okay? The book of Joshua is woefully misrepresented in modern culture. People say all these platitudes about it, about how it being this really, really terrible, thing in the Bible that I can't believe that. And it's just like, number one, and again, we'll talk about this next week. It uses hyperbolic language. That's just the most obvious thing.
Right.
It uses hyperbolic language because the groups that it says we utterly destroyed.
You read them later.
Yeah, they show up later.
They show up later.
Okay? So there's that. Okay? Number two, the language is differentiated depending on who they're actually talking about. If it's the giant clans, yeah. If it's the fortified cities, yeah. Like, let's tear these places down. We're wrecking house. But then you have a number of Canaanite groups who are willing to side with Israel and are allowed to. So there's that too. It's like we have to take ancient war literature in its context. You know what I mean? It's not the most violent stuff that you find in ancient war literature. That's all I'm saying. It's more tame than a lot of other stuff. But we look at it as more appalled at the way that the ancients described warfare. Warfare is disgusting and brutal. You know what I mean? It just is. So, and we'll get into it. It'll be fun. Trust me, it'll be fun. Lord of the Rings, everyone. I keep saying it. It'll be good, but we'll talk more about that next week. The point is, I want to jump to chapters 29, 30, and 32. Those are the final chapters that we're going to read. This is why, for these books, like Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, I say we're reading selections. simply because we're not reading like big swaths of a story. I'm just trying to give you like samples, you know what I mean, from these books. So yeah, notes that you can find valuable. So Deuteronomy 29. Okay. Let me go all the way over to there. Okay. Let me just refresh my memory as to what is in here. Hang on. Let me look something up. Deuteronomy 8. Okay. So turn to Deuteronomy 8, verse 8. We'll read this and then I'll get into what I was saying. Sorry, we're jumping around a little bit. Okay. Verse 7 and verse 8. You ready? For the Lord your God is bringing you into a good land, a land of brooks of water, fountains and springs, flowing out in the valleys and the hills, a land of wheat. Where's my pen?
Wheat and barley.
Wheat. Barley. What else?
Vines of fig trees, pomegranate.
Okay, hang on. Grapes. That would be the vines. Figs. What else? They're coming in season, so that's good. Pomegranate. Pomegranate. Okay, what else? Olives. Olive oil, yeah.
It's so interesting, right? All the different
Let's do oil too. And what else?
honey.
Okay. Is it all the honey we're thinking about? Dates. Okay. This is what we're bringing. Yeah, this is what we're bringing. This is the 7 species of Israel, okay? And I wanted to identify in the Bible for you that it's in there, okay?
Okay, why does he say honey and not dates?
Okay, so what you do is you grind this up into a syrup. And it's date honey. Yeah.
How do we know that?
Well, that's what they're still doing it today. But because again, palm trees are ubiquitous within Israel. And so
bees and honey.
Huh? Well, there is bee honey too. I guess I'm just saying within the identification of the 7 species, they don't exclude dates.
Dates come from palm trees?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's good.
So I guess you could say dates and honey. Like actual honey. Because you do have honeycomb mentioned. So oftentimes I think if the Bible means what we mean by honey, sometimes it'll say honeycomb. I could be wrong though. Yeah. So
The wild honey.
yeah, like wild honey. Yeah. Honey that you find, like sweetness syrup that you just find. That's what we call honey. But dates are they would grind it up into a syrup. And anyway, so good. So come up at the end of today and write your name next to what you're bringing. How about that? Is that cool? And we can have someone bring olives. We can have someone bring olive oil, and we'll have whoever brings olive oil, bring little cups so we could pour it out and just have the olive oil by itself.
And that's in about 3 weeks.
With the wheat.
Huh? No, not that. We'll just bring bread. Just bring.
No, I mean olive oil. You can dip your bread.
Oh yeah, we could do that too. Let's do that. When are we doing this? 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
Not next week. The next week. The 9th. Yeah, that's when JM's coming. Does that sound good? Okay. All right, guys. Sorry, I just wanted to do that before I wanted to show you where it's in the Bible, and then. Okay, now we go to chapter 29. Okay. All right, let's bring it home for today. We have like 30 minutes. Starting at verse 1 of chapter 29. These are the words of the covenant that the Lord commanded Moses to make with the people of Israel in the land of Moab, besides the covenant that he had made with them at Horeb. And Moses summoned all Israel and said to them, "You have seen all that the Lord did before your eyes in the land of Egypt, to Pharaoh and to all his servants and to all his land, and the great trials that your eyes saw, the signs, those great wonders. But to this day the Lord has not given you a heart to understand, or eyes to see, or ears to hear. I have led you 40 years in the wilderness. Your clothes have not worn out on you. Your sandals have not worn off your feet. You have not eaten bread. You have not drunk wine or strong drink, that you may know that I am the Lord your God. And when you came to this place, Sihon king of Heshbon and Og king of Bashan came out against us in battle, and we defeated them. We took their land and gave it to the inheritance of the Reubenites, the Gadites, the half-tribe of the Massites. Therefore keep the words of the covenant and do them, that you may prosper in all that you do. You are standing today, all of you, before the Lord your God, the heads of your tribes, your elders, your officers, all the men of Israel, your little ones, your wives, and the sojourner who is in your camp, from the one who chops wood to the one who draws your water, so that you may enter into the sworn covenant of the Lord your God, which the Lord your God is making with you today, that he may establish you today as his people, that he may be your God as he promised you, and as he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. It is not with you alone that I am making this sworn covenant, but whoever is standing here with us today, that the Lord our God, and whoever is not here with us today. You shall know how we lived in the land of Egypt, how we came through the midst of the nations through which you passed, and you have seen their detestable things, their idols of wood and stone, of silver and gold, which were among them. Beware, lest there be among you a man or woman or clan or tribe whose heart is turning away today from the Lord our God to go and serve the gods of those nations. Beware, lest there be among you a root bearing poisonous and bitter fruit, one who, when he hears the words of this sworn covenant, blesses himself in his heart, saying, I shall be safe, though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart. This will lead to the sweeping away of moist and dry alike. The Lord will not be willing to forgive him, but rather the anger of the Lord and his jealousy will be smoke against that man, and the curses written in this book will settle upon him. And the Lord will blot out his name from under heaven. And the Lord will single him out from all the tribes of Israel for calamity, in accordance with all the curses of the covenant written in this book of the law. And the next generation, for your children who rise up after you, and the foreigner who comes from a far land, will say, when they see the afflictions of that land and the sickness with which the Lord has made sick, the whole land burned out with brimstone and salt, nothing sown and nothing growing, where no plant can sprout, an overthrow like that of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and wrath. All the nations will say, why has the Lord done thus to this land? What caused the heat of this great anger? Then the people will say, it is because they abandoned the covenant of the Lord, the God of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them out of the land of Egypt, and went and served other gods and worshipped them, gods whom they had not known and whom he had not allotted to them. Therefore the anger of the Lord was kindled against this land, bringing upon it all the curses written in this book. And the Lord uprooted them from their land in anger and fury and great wrath, and cast them into another land, as they are this day. The secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things that are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. Next chapter. I'm reading big chunks now. And when all these things come upon you, the blessings and the curse, which I set before you, and you call them to mind among all the nations where the Lord your God has driven you, and return to the Lord your God, you and your children, and obey his voice in all that I command you today, with all your heart and all your soul, then the Lord your God will restore your fortunes and have mercy on you, and he will gather you again from all the peoples where the Lord your God has scattered you. If your outcasts are in the uttermost parts of heaven, from there the Lord your God will gather you, and there he will take you. The Lord your God will bring you into the land your fathers possessed, that you may possess it, and he will make you more prosperous and more numerous than your fathers. And the Lord your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your offspring, so that you will love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, that you may live. And the Lord your God will put all of these curses on your foes and your enemies who persecuted you. And you shall again obey the voice of the Lord and keep all his commandments that I command you today. The Lord your God will make you abundantly prosperous in all of the work of your hand, the fruit of your womb, and the fruit of your cattle, and in the fruit of your ground. For the Lord will again take delight in prospering you, as he took delight in your fathers, when you obey the voice of the Lord to keep his commandments and his statutes that are written in the book of the law, when you turn to the Lord with your God with your heart and with your soul. Verse 11. For this commandment that I command you today is not too hard for you, neither is it far off. It is not in heaven, that you should say, who will ascend to heaven and bring it to us, so that we may hear it or do it? Neither it is beyond the sea, that you should say, who will go over the sea and bring it back to us, that we may hear it and do it? but the word is very near to you. It is in your mouth and in your heart, so that you can do it. See, I have set before you today life and good, death and evil. If you obey the commandments of the Lord your God that I command you, by loving the Lord your God, by walking in his ways, by keeping his commandments and statutes and his rules, then you shall live and multiply. And the Lord your God will bless you in the land that you are entering to take possession of it. But if your heart turns away, and you will not hear, and be drawn away to worship other gods and serve them, I declare to you today that you shall surely perish. You shall not live long in the land that you are going over the Jordan to enter to possess. I call on heaven and earth to witness against you today that I have set before you today life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore, choose life, that you and your offspring may live, by loving the Lord your God, by obeying his voice and holding fast to him. For he is your life and length of days, that you may dwell in the land that the Lord swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give to them. A lot of words. Thoughts, immediate reflections. Go ahead.
I see back in 30, verse 19,
Uh-huh.
when someone hears the words of this oath, or may consider himself exempt, thinking, I will have peace, even though I follow my own stubborn heart.
Right.
This will lead you to destruction. And I'm just like, this already, again, we're back in Old Testament.
Uh-huh.
There's a warning that there's a difference between hearing something
Yeah.
and actually doing the thing. And repeatedly already, just in this couple chapters, you got to hear it and obey it. Hear it and obey it. Like,
Right.
if you don't do it, hearing it is not enough. There's another part to action of it.
Right.
For it to come to fruition. You
Right.
just get to hear it and then get all the good benefits, but you're not.
Mhm.
But you're going to go the wrong way in how you're acting.
Right. So I want to say, just to clarify, in any way that we might draw a one-to-one between this old covenant statute elements and then modern, New Testament era stuff, the salvation out of the realm of slavery has already taken place, right? So this is about applied
Right.
salvation, right? Yeah. The idea here is that now you need to operate in these things, right? Exactly. But again, he said, what's we have to clarify here is he said there isn't one among you who has the wherewithal to actually carry this out, and that if there's some among you that are going to be failures, on account of that person, all of you are going to undergo a judgment. Okay? It's the same thing sort of as if you break one statute of the law, you've broken the whole law. The idea here is that he's saying, I know that this people will fail. Okay? This is going to happen. You're going to be scattered among the nations. I am going to bring you back. And so this is really important, because as we get into the prophets, as we get into these elements of the Bible that are looking forward into their immediate future, they're saying, guys, what God said was going to happen is happening, and we're about to suffer the consequences of it. When you read Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel and these books about the Babylonian exile and the anticipation of the Babylonian exile and Judgment Day, they're saying, we've gone a really wrong way, and God's going to bring down the house on top of us. Okay. And then they give this promise that, no, he's going to bring you back. He's going to bring you back. He's going to bring you back. The point of understanding this entire biblical narrative and biblical story is, by the time that they go into the Babylonian exile, by the time they come back in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah, at the very end of the Old Testament, they say, we are now slaves in the land. Okay? So they say, we were exiled, we were brought back, and now we're slaves even in our own land. So they need a liberation. They need a new exodus. All of this needs to actually get to the root of the matter, which is their heart problem. Okay? So that's what Messiah comes to accomplish, that they achieve true freedom. That it's not just about going in and out of the land, but that the land itself, you could say, is welling up from within them, the Garden of Eden, you know what I mean? That they're restored spiritually, and then the physical comes a new creation. Okay? So I just wanted to frame all of that this is a context of the idea of this going into the land. I know that you're going to screw up. The curses are going to come upon you. You're going to be scattered. I'm going to bring you back. And it is through Messiah that they're going to be restored. In the same way, did this not resemble Genesis chapter 3 for anyone? Or Genesis chapter 2, you shall eat of every tree of the garden, but not this one tree, because you will perish. Bad things are going to happen, right? It's going to go not well with you. You're going to be brought out of the land, but I'm going to bring you back. That's the one thing you have to get from Deuteronomy. When you think about Deuteronomy, think about the promise and prophecy that God is giving through Moses, that he knows that Israel is going to fail. And he says, I know you're going to fail, but I'm going to bring you back. Okay? And that's what the story of the Old Testament is. Okay? Good? Well, the New Testament, I guess you could say. By the end of the Old Testament, they say, okay, we're brought back to the land, but it's not right. Things are still wrong.
If he knows that they're going to fail, I don't understand.
Sorry, go ahead.
Why test them if he knows that they're going to fail?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's the same question as asking, why test Adam and Eve with the garden? Okay. It's a great question. Why test if he knows that they're going to fail? So, number one, you have to understand that what's going on in the Bible is that God is revealing the main point is God is revealing his nature. Okay. Who he is. The best way for him to reveal his nature, who he is for him to be able to reveal the fullness of that in light of our not being like him and our falling short of him. Okay? So the fact that he gives us an opportunity to be like him, and then we decide not to, he can now show up with mercy. You can't have the grace and the mercy revealed, the grace and mercy of God revealed without the opportunity for that. Does that make sense?
So that you won't be able to do it.
Exactly.
It's exactly the same with our salvation.
Yeah.
We are saved by grace.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't say you won't be able to live this out.
Mm-hmm.
But we won't be able to live it out without his grace.
Right.
And the forgiveness comes from his grace.
Absolutely.
And the righteousness comes from his grace. We're not righteousness on our own.
Yeah.
It comes from him.
Yeah.
But without that juxtaposition of my inept
Mm-hmm.
to his glory,
Mm-hmm.
then
So what you're asking about is you're asking about a very fundamental Christian doctrine, the idea of law and gospel. Okay? Law is the mirror which shows you how you fall short. Okay? That's that test that you're talking about. The law is when you look at the mirror and you see everything that is not God, right? Everything that is not like him, right? The gospel is God saying, I will make up for all of your deficiencies. I myself will come and empower you and transform you into my own likeness. So the test and the fall, the reason that God deems it a good for humanity to go through a fall, to go through the suffering of life, is to show
To show us we need it.
to show us we need him and to show us his great love, that the ultimate expression of God, the ultimate manifestation, the ultimate revelation of God's identity is as the God of grace, the God who comes and dies in an unfair manner. We don't deserve it, but because of his great love, he does it anyway. Does that make sense?
we don't deserve it.
Yeah.
He didn't deserve it.
No, he didn't deserve it.
We don't deserve his.
We don't deserve his gift. It's not, we did great things, therefore he loved us. It's he loved us and calls us to great things. Okay? That's the question. That's the answer to the question. Okay? Why allow us to fall? It's that, again, Paul in Romans says this, that the law is a mirror. It's the standard by which we recognize that we fall short and we can never in our own might ascend.
That's free will, right? We have to choose it.
Yeah. Well, the idea here is that God gives you the opportunity now. God says, I'm going to free you spiritually, because the dominion of slavery under Egypt, it's a metaphor. It's a historical metaphor. There's a real people enslaved in Egypt, but that circumstance is, you could say that circumstance is contrived by God, not contrived isn't the right way, sovereignly orchestrated by God to get at the heart of the issue, which is you are slaves in Egypt in your heart. Okay? So he takes the people
From micro.
he takes the people through history to show that this actually happens and this actually will happen, and how what happens on the personal level scales to a national level, and that God is going to liberate us from all of it, right? But he allows us to go through all of that so that he can dispense that grace to us, so that he can actually give us real grace. Okay? Does that make sense? That is the mercy that comes through our failure to not live up to him, but he helps us anyway. Okay? Does that make sense?
I think it's mirrored the fact that he says, "But I'll bring you back."
Exactly. That's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point of these chapters, for sure. He's saying, what happened in the garden, it's going to happen again for you guys. I'm bringing you into a good place flowing of milk and honey. All of the trees of the garden, right? There's going to be water flowing, gushing out of the rock, crags in the rock, and stuff, as he says, It's going to be a promised land, a good land. Everything's going to go wrong in that land. Know that I'm going to bring you back. And what am I going to do? I'm going to circumcise your heart. He says, I'm going to circumcise your heart. I'm not going to circumcise your flesh. I'm going to circumcise your heart. So what is ultimately concluded from the multiple blessing and curses chapters of Deuteronomy, which we skipped over, but he says, if this, then this. If that, then that. You know what I mean? Blessing, curse. Okay. What is ultimately concluded from those chapters is that Israel will fail to fulfill the covenant conditions of their God. Deuteronomy 29 verse 18 states, "It may be that there is a man or woman among you, a family or tribe, whose heart is already turning away from the Lord our God." So even as the speech is being given, there may already be among you one whose heart is turning away already, right? It may be that there is already among you a root sprouting poisonous and bitter growth. What the final messages of Deuteronomy present is that the reality that Israel will fail, and yet God will remain faithful and merciful. While Israel will reap the consequence of their sin and eventually get sent into exile, God will bring them back and give them new hearts. So this is recapping a little bit of, I've already said this, but remember, creation of humanity ends in Babylon. Creation of Israel ends in Babylon. The idea is all of humanity is in need of a savior. God's chosen people, even in interacting with these chosen people, now it's manifest not just in the stories of Genesis 1 to 11, it's manifest throughout this long storied history, these people and places that we can identify. We can see how that story played out in real time. Both circumstances yield a need of the one. Let's go back to Genesis chapter 3. The seed of the woman who will crush the head of the serpent. God says, that one will come, okay? I'm going to bring you back. Remember, the point of the law, I've already said this, revealed throughout the whole story of the Bible, is the impossibility of fallen humanity to ever be able to fulfill the full command of the law. The sin nature of Adam's lineage holds everyone back, making us incapable of imaging God properly. Yet in the New Testament, this is what Jesus accomplishes, the new Adam, right? He lives perfectly obedient to God, and so empowers believers by the power of the Holy Spirit to be like him, okay? So what does it mean for Christ to be the new Adam? It means that, the fallenness of Adam is now restored into the perfection of Christ. And now we are not people of the fallenness of Adam. We're people of the perfection of Christ. And he says, I will circumcise your heart. God will cut away. Huh? Oh, gosh. So annoying. It's undermining my delivery. I want to point you to Jeremiah chapter 32, Romans chapter 2, and Ezekiel 36. So again, the later biblical writers are following up on this language very intently, okay? That this is like a key point of the Bible. Jeremiah chapter 31. The days are surely coming, says Yahweh, when I will make a new covenant. Okay? So we're talking about the old covenant. Jeremiah in the Old Testament saying, I'm coming to make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. It will not be like the covenant that I made with their ancestors when I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, a covenant that they broke, though I was their husband, says the Lord. But this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says the Lord. I will put my law within them. I will write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. So that's circumcision of the heart, right? Ezekiel chapter 36. This is Now, after they're scattered among the nations, right? After they've been dispersed, after the exile, Ezekiel is prophesying. God is speaking through Ezekiel says, I will take you from among the nations and gather you from all the countries, and I will bring you into your own land. I will sprinkle clean water upon you, and you shall be clean from all your uncleanliness. And from all your idols I will cleanse you. A new heart I will give you. A new spirit I will put within you. I will remove from your body a heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. I'll put my spirit within you and make you follow my statutes and be careful to observe my ordinances. Then you shall live in the land that I gave your ancestors, and you shall be my people, and I will be your God. Okay? This is what we're talking about when we say the thing that empowers us to actually fulfill the blessings, the law, the thing that allows us to actually walk as God designed us to walk is the new heart, is the Spirit of God that comes down in Acts chapter 2 at Pentecost, right? The empowerment of the Spirit is what allows us to walk in freedom. This is what Paul is talking about ad nauseum in the book of Romans, okay? Life that is lived in the Spirit, not of the flesh. The life of the circumcision of the flesh is a life that leads to death, because circumcision of the flesh is not enough to fulfill the law. Circumcision of the heart, the Spirit, which transforms the heart of stone into the heart of flesh, is the thing that accomplishes the covenant of God. Okay? Make sense, guys? Romans chapter 2. Those who are physically uncircumcised but keep the law will condemn you that have the written code and circumcision but break the law. For a person is not a Jew who is one outwardly, nor is true circumcision something external and physical. Rather, a person is a Jew who is one inwardly. A real circumcision is a matter of the heart, is spiritual and not literal. Such a person receives praise not from others, but from God. Okay? Does that make sense? Does that drive it all home? Questions, comments, concerns? And then Hebrews chapter 8. Jesus has now obtained a more excellent ministry. And to that degree, he is the mediator of a better covenant, which has been enacted through better promises. For if the first covenant, the covenant that we've been reading about in Deuteronomy, had been faultless, there would not have been need to look for a second one. So the idea of this Sinai covenant, remember, we talked about it's a temporary thing. Just as the tabernacle is a temporary thing. All this stuff from Sinai that we've been going over, it's all pointing towards something bigger and greater, more universal, okay? Not for the people of Israel, but for all humanity. That's what I'm trying to drive home for you guys. When you look at Israel, look at a microcosm of all of humanity, and God is saying, you're going to fail, but I'm going to bring you back. I'm going to restore
this
you.
Covenant, this temporary covenant wasn't put in place knowing that they would fail, and the people wouldn't have seen the need for Jesus, for a Savior.
Precisely.
Well, we didn't even get the chance yet.
Yeah. This you're understanding, you're getting at the idea of the story of salvation. That salvation is a story that goes through history and it requires these steps. Yeah. So that by the time this is hopefully will be driven home to you very well when we get to the end of the Old Testament and we get to right now, the next many meetings are going to be us seeing Israel fail and how it went down. Okay. They're going to go into the land. They're going to conquer. It's going to be great. They're going to build a kingdom. The kings are going to increasingly get corrupt. They're going to burn their own children in the valley of Hinnom, which is where we get the word hell from. And Jeremiah says, God in Jeremiah says, you're going to pass through that same fire. They're going to be sent into exile. They're going to come back and they're going to say, we're slaves in our own land. When is the Messiah going to come? We haven't even talked about Messiah that much. We only talked about Balaam's prophecy about the king of Israel. But the prophets throughout this time post-Torah are continuously going to be looking forward to the fact that we're going to be exiled at one point, because God said it in Deuteronomy, but know that one is going to come to restore us. That one who is the seed of the woman who crushes the head of the serpent. Okay? So this is the fullness of the story of Scripture. Okay? It all should get at that question that you asked, why do this all in the first place? To show us grace, right? The law shows us our need for grace. That's what it does. Our failure to live up to God's standard shows us why we need Him. Okay? Why we need to walk hand in hand with Him. We are not our own gods. We don't do it on our own. That is, in fact, the thing that gets them kicked out of the garden. You will be like God, right? The idea that I can do this all on my own is the thing that gets them kicked out in the first place. Let's finish by reading Deuteronomy chapter 32. Deuteronomy chapter 32, it's called the Song of Moses. Okay?
Quick comment.
Yep.
Just always thinking about it, because what we just went through it is the difference between God knowing and God causing.
Okay.
That God can know things without causing them to happen. So, like, his intent was that the garden would work.
Yeah.
He knew, because he knows the end from the beginning.
Yeah.
He knew what the choice would be, but he didn't cause the choice.
Right. So it would be a problem for us to say that God does things like genuinely, right?
Well, the
Yeah.
only reason I bring it up is because when we say the purpose of all this is so that God can show us His grace,
Yeah.
that we can't do without Him. It only became that purpose when we made the choice.
Sure. Yeah.
Prior to the choice, He didn't cause it so we could know this.
Gotcha.
about it.
Yeah, but I think the idea is creation with foreknowledge necessitates the idea that if I create, then this will happen. Again, limited language, like it's hard to even talk about this, but
There's a mystery in here too.
yeah, there's some mystery. But I think the point is, yeah, God does not choose for this to happen in the sense that He wants it or wills it, intends it, I think is the right language. This is why language is really helpful, because ordain would be the right language. You know what I mean? You could say that God allows, that God,
Well, if He creates us with free will,
yeah,
then He's allowing
exactly.
the visibility of failure.
Yeah. And if He has the knowledge of failure, then for all intents and purposes, like he creates with full intention, knowing that this is going to be the story.
The other piece that we haven't talked about with man's choice was it wasn't totally by mankind. It was
The servant.
influence.
Yeah. Oh man.
There's
stuff.
another piece of this that's going on. So.
Hunter?
I feel like another aspect to this is our free will affects our offspring.
Mm-hmm.
So like Adam and Eve, they sinned, and so that gave us now we're sinners. So like now what we do affects our own offspring and how they're raised up, I guess.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Good thoughts. I'm just going to finish by reading this. It's a great way to finish the Torah, okay? And then we'll be done. Deuteronomy chapter 32, the Song of Moses. This is his last speech, okay? Give ear, O heavens, and I will speak. Let the earth hear the words of my mouth. Let my teaching drop as the rain, my speech distill as dew, like gentle rain upon the tender grass, like showers upon the herb. For I will proclaim the name of the Lord, ascribe greatness to our God. The rock, his work is perfect, for all his ways are justice. A God of faithfulness and without iniquity, just and upright is he. They have dealt corruptly with him. They are no longer his children because they are blemished. They are a crooked and twisted generation. Verse 6. Do you thus repay the Lord, you foolish and senseless people? Is he not your Father who created you, who made you and established you? Remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and he will show you, your elders, and they will tell you. When the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he divided mankind, he fixed the borders of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. But the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob his allotted heritage. I get mixed up with the translations because I remember them. I remember other translations, and then I so I think to say something, but anyway. Verse 10, he found them in a desert land, in the howling waste of the wilderness. He encircled them. He cared for him. He kept him as the apple of his eye, like an eagle that stirs up its nest, that flutters over its young, spreading out its wings, catching them and bearing them on its pinions. The Lord alone guided him. No foreign god was with him. He made him ride on the high places of the land, and he ate the produce of the field. And he suckled him with honey out of the rock, with oil out of the flinty rock. curds from the herd, milk from the flock, with fat of lambs, rams of Bashan, and goats, with the very finest of the wheat. And you drank foaming wine made from the blood of the grape. But Jeshurun grew fat and kicked. You grew fat, stout, and sleek, and he forsook the God who made him and scoffed at the rock of his salvation. They stirred him to jealousy with strange gods, with abominations they provoked him to anger. They sacrificed to demons that were no gods, to gods they had never known, to new gods that had come recently, whom your fathers had never dreaded. You were unmindful of the rock that bore you, and you forgot the God who gave you birth. The Lord saw it and spurned them because of the provocation of his sons and his daughters. And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end will be, for they are a perverse generation, children in whom there is no faithfulness. They have made me jealous with what is no God. They have provoked me to anger with their idols. So I will make them jealous with what are no people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. Okay, that verse 21 is so significant, by the way, but we can't talk about it, unfortunately. Just bookmark it. Verse 22 is also very important. For a fire is kindled by my anger, and it burns to the depths of Sheol, devours the earth and its increase, and sets on fire the foundations of the mountains. So, verse 22, a fire is kindled by my anger, and it burns to the depths of hell. That, again, is one of those things where I asked you to bookmark the idea of fire and hell earlier on. We'll get more into this idea of fire and hell as we continue, okay? About the presence of God, the anger of God being fire, but also the fire of God being purifying, being glorifying, okay? It's the same image for two sort of different directions, you could say. Sometimes people talk about the idea of heaven and hell as being like opposite sides of the spectrum, you know, when in reality, they're a lot closer than you think. Okay. So just wanted to sort of have you bookmark that. Okay. Remember, Sheol means hell. It can be translated to hell. And so to have fire go down into hell from God himself, I think is what I'm getting at. Okay. Picking up at verse 23. And I will heap disasters upon them, and I will spend my arrows on them. And they shall be wasted with hunger, and devoured by plague and poisonous pestilence. I will send the teeth of beasts against them, the venom of things that crawl in the dust. Outdoors the sword shall bereave, and indoors terror, for young men and women alike, the nursing child with the man of gray hairs. I would have said, I will cut them into pieces, I will wipe them away from human memory. Had I not feared provocation by the enemy, lest their adversaries should misunderstand, or lest they should say, our hand is triumphant, it was not the Lord who did all this. For they are a nation void of counsel, and there is no understanding in them. If they are wise, they would understand this. They would discern their latter end. How could one have chased 1,000 and two have put 10,000 to flight, unless their rock had sold them, and the Lord had not given them up? So what he's saying there is, they're a nation void of counsel. There's no understanding in them. For if they were wise, they would understand that they were small, but they conquered the great. Okay, because of his mightiness that was within them. Okay. Verse 31. For their rock is not as our rock. Our enemies are by themselves. Their vine comes from the vine of Sodom and the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are grapes of poison. Their clusters are bitter. Their wine is the poison of serpents, the cruel venom of asps. Is this not laid up in store with me, sealed up in my treasuries? Vengeance is mine, and recompense for the time for when their foot shall slip. For the day of their calamity is at hand, and their doom comes swiftly. For the Lord will vindicate his people and have compassion on his servants, when he sees that their power is gone, and there is none remaining, bond or free. Then he will say, where are their gods, the rock in which they took refuge, who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offering? Let them rise up and help you. Let them be your protection. See now that I, even I, am he. There is no God beside me. I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. And there is none that can deliver out of my hand. For I lift up my hand to heaven and swear, as I live forever, if I sharpen my flashing sword and my hand takes hold hold on judgment. I will take vengeance on my adversaries. I will repay those who hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh, with the blood of the slain and the captives, from the long-haired heads of the enemy. Rejoice with him, O heavens, bow down to him, all gods, for he avenges the blood of his children and takes vengeance on his adversaries. He repays those who hate him and cleanses his people's land. Okay. Whoo! That was a lot. Before we go, I know it's 11:15 and we're a little late. Reflections. Deuteronomy 32. What should be like striking your brain right now is the idea of God saying, vengeance is mine, and I will bring judgment upon the people that reject me and the people that go after these vain gods and idols. But, he says at the end, I will also avenge my true children. So think about this at the beginning. He said, I brought you out of the wilderness. I made you my child, right? But then you rebelled against me. So I will bring my judgment, but I will also avenge my true children, is what he says right at the very end. So what does that mean? He says, rejoice with him, O heavens, bow down to him, all gods, for he avenges the blood of his children and takes vengeance on his adversaries. So are his children his enemies? That's sort of what was described throughout this. But then also he will avenge his true children. So how do we reconcile those things? So the entire Deuteronomy 32 is him saying, I brought you out, I made you my child, you rejected me. I will bring judgment upon these people and the nations. He says, a fire is kindled by my anger. It burns to the depths of the underworld, right? It burns and it's going to fill the entire earth. He says that judgment is also going to be vengeance for his children. Okay? So what we have here is a distinction that is going to be drawn, that is being drawn here between true Israel and false Israel. Okay? Does that make sense? A distinction between those who were chosen to be his children but reject him, and those who are the true Israel that will be justified, will be avenged by God in the end, through Judgment Day, through the day of the Lord. Okay? There's a distinction here between the true sons of God, the true children, the true adopted ones, and then the false ones. That's what's sort of mysterious and sort of like tricky and makes you think a little bit about Deuteronomy 32, is it's envisioning this moment at which there's a true Israel and there's a false Israel. Okay? There's an Israel that is rejecting God. There's an Israel that is receiving God, that will be avenged against the people who rejected. Is this drawing to mind any concepts from later on in the Bible? Yeah, so the Pharisees, yep. The Pharisees, the Sadducees, those that persecute the early church, right? And Jesus says, you are your father's sons, your fathers who persecuted the prophets before you, right? And so when we get to Stephen's sermon, and he talks about, this was all the story of history. This was all the story of the history of Israel, about a split in our people between those who oppressed the true people of God. That is also what's being prophesied here. And what is being prophesied here ultimately is, it's the earliest inklings that you have in the Bible of the concept of Judgment Day. The day of the Lord, where God separates the wheat from the chaff, the sheep and the goats, right? False Israel, true Israel. That's what Deuteronomy 32 is about. Saying, I granted all of these people grace. I brought them out of the desert. I made them into a people. They grew fat and they kicked me. And they kicked me off and they went after other gods. I will have my vengeance against them and I will avenge my true children. Okay? The ones in whom they are persecuting. So in here you have an anticipation of all of the story of the Old Testament where you have the persecution of the prophets and then the persecution of the church. Okay? And then the vengeance of God that comes upon and brings the story to its fruition as he brings judgment upon the nations, brings judgment upon the peoples that reject him. Does that make sense, guys? That's what you have in Deuteronomy. At the end of Deuteronomy, you have a vision of Revelation. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Christians are true Israel, part of the true Israel.
You could say Christians are the Jew and the Gentile united in one body, which is true Israel. Yeah. There you go. Good.
Look, John 5 says, Jesus saying, but do not think I will accuse you before the Father. Your accuser is Moses.
Yeah.
And your hopes are set.
Your accuser is Moses. I love that. Yeah. So again, when Jesus says, Moses wrote about me or something like that, your accuser is Moses. The idea is that the Old Testament Torah has everything you need to understand the story of the Bible. Okay? Understand in last meeting, we had the whole story about the coming of the King of Israel, right? The coming of Messiah. And then here we have Judgment Day. You even have the day of the Lord language being used in the Torah. Okay? So the stage is set for the rest of the Bible. Okay? Now we get into past the Torah. We're getting into the prophets, the Nevi'im. Okay? This is the section where we're going to see everything that we talked about in Deuteronomy play out. Okay? It's all set up, and now the rest of the Old Testament is everything that we just talked about today working itself out. The New Testament is the restoration. The New Testament is God, Messiah, coming and bringing all this to restoration, to redemption, the true Passover, the true baptism. All this stuff that was shadowed will come to its light. Okay? And so now we are entering from Moses to Joshua. We have the monarchy, then we have the exile, and then we have Christmas and Jesus. Okay? Sound good, guys? Today, we've concluded the Torah. Thank you, guys.